It's about the things relating to money that goes directly to our families, and the bridge between those two, the impact and the influence of one another. So that's what I want to talk about today. So Matt, with that, kind of context for this conversation, maybe we start with a big question for you, which is, all right, the guys are listening to the show. It's early December. When it comes to money, let's think short term for a second. What should they be thinking about right now as it relates to wrapping up the year or planning for the year? What comes to mind for you?
Yeah, awesome. So many things you can think about. Sometimes it gets overwhelming. That's where we really try to hone in and pick a few things for our clients that say, okay, here's what to think about now. In terms of December, a lot of times people are what I call sweating it when it comes to tax time. They're wondering, am I going to owe? Am I going to get a refund? How's it going to turn out? Especially as a business owner, I would really encourage you to know that ahead of time. December is the time to really dial that in and say, okay, let's do our best to forecast how the year is going to close so that we know what tax time is going to feel like, because that'll take some of the stress away, or take some of the stress away if a surprise shows up. I've seen that over the years with a household where you get this unexpected tax bill, and I'm sure everybody's gotten it, and it's like, okay, man, this really stinks. And then it puts stress on the family, because then you got to figure out where to get the money from. And because a lot of times you don't have the money set aside because you thought you had it all paid in. So December, year end, that last quarter, October, November, December, always be thinking about planning and how is the year going to close, because there are some things you can do to impact how the year is going to close if you don't like the projected result. So that's usually step one is, okay, if we change nothing, how are we going to end up for the year, and what is our tax situation going to look like? Or if we don't like that result, what can we do between now and December 31st to change the outcome? There are actually lots and lots of things that allow you to change how your outcome is going to fall. But it has to happen by December 31st. That's one of the misnomers, is a lot of people think that happens at tax prep time. There's very little that you can do. There are some things, but it's not a lot that you can do during tax preparation. It's really, what can we do to take action steps and plan before December 31st?
Got it. What types of things should we be thinking about doing, decisions to make before the 31st?
Most of it is really knowing where you're at. The ability to take and have up-to-date bookkeeping is probably the number one thing that prevents people from doing proper planning, because if you don't know where you're at, it's hard to make decisions about what to do next. So especially as a small business or a startup business, or somebody that's still trying to get their legs under them, getting that bookkeeping process, and with technology today and outsourcing today, there's so many great things that you can do to keep that up to date. That's going to give you kind of that first step roadmap to making good decisions around planning. If you have that, then you can start to look at, okay, well, if I'm cash basis, this gets a little technical, but meaning I deduct expenses as I pay them, and I record revenue as I receive them. You can play a lot of games with your income legally, because you can accelerate certain expenses to bring down your income, where if you let those expenses roll over into January, you might have missed or delayed the deduction to the following tax year, where if you can get it in the current tax year and lower your tax exposure, why wouldn't you want to do that? That's one thing. And then depreciation rules have been substantially accelerated in the last 5 to 10 years. So there's lots of different things you can do for your business. If you need to expand or want to expand, you can get some different depreciation deductions to help lower your taxable income and allow that expansion to possibly happen sooner. I had a franchise client that did this substantially through 2009, 10, 11, 12, when the economy was depressed. They had the ability to buy additional franchises because most people were trying to sell at that time. Everybody was trying to figure out, is this something I want to be in? Well, it was an equipment intensive franchise, so it allowed him to take tons and tons of depreciation. What that means from an income perspective is, if his income was high, he could take the depreciation to make his income low. So this one individual person went from a 50-person, $3 million company to a 400-person, $15 million company through a 5-year stretch because of some of those depreciation rules. So understanding those and having somebody to talk through how to do something like that is really critical to say, okay, can I accelerate the company using some of these tax incentives that are out there?
One of the things that I'm working with your team on right now is, and let's get into this, specific strategies, like how to integrate family in business. And this is kind of cool because one of our pillars is, integrated living. And when we say that, we are referring to, in a sense, the calendar, how we blend things. But this is another great example that when we take things off of the calendar and think about how they integrate in our lives, this is a perfect example of that. Allowing our business and our family to integrate in certain areas. Talk to us about hiring your family, or like the family bank concept.
Yes, absolutely. The hire your kids is probably the most often referred to, but you can also hire your spouse. You know, the two things with that. First, hiring your kids, there's a couple rules to keep in mind. The basic age is at least 7 years old. If you're going to do basic tasks in a business and be integrated in the family, you can hire and pay your kids, and there's some significant advantages to that, and I'll explain that in a second. On the spouse side, most of the time hiring a spouse comes into retirement planning concepts. You don't want to just hire and pay your spouse without specific purpose, because if you are, you might be losing payroll taxes that you don't need to pay. The Social Security system is quite unique in how it sets up its retirement benefits. If one spouse works and the other never works, the non-working spouse is able to take a 50% benefit on the working spouse without ever having paid any Social Security or Medicare taxes. So you only want to pay those Social Security and Medicare taxes on a spouse if there's a specific intent. That intent would be something like a 401k. So if you're trying to maximize retirement contributions, you can have a husband and a wife on a payroll. I have a realtor couple who does this right now very, very well. They're the only two employees of the company. They are putting anywhere from $65,000 to $75,000 a year aside into the retirement plan because of what some of the solo 401k rules allow. And adding the spouse to the payroll allowed us to make that even better than just doing it on the one spouse. So that's one way to bring your spouse in. But again, be conscious on the spouse side to just not have the spouse on payroll with no specific intent. If the spouse is on payroll, make sure you know why. Because otherwise it might be costing you money instead of saving you money. Mm-hmm. And then on hiring your kids, this is just a fantastic thing to do. I recommend it to all our business owners. Number one, it helps teach your kids about what you're doing, how it works, talk about money, talk about their own process. You know, everybody's got their own characteristics when it comes to money. Like even my two kids, I won't tell you which is which. One's a spender, one's a saver. So it really gives us a good conversation to say, hey, this money's coming in. And it's even opened up a couple of conversations. Yeah. Well, you need to borrow this from your other sibling because you don't have any money right now because the portion of your paycheck that's yours, it's gone. And so it really lets them talk to each other, talk to us, and have good conversations around that. Then us as the parents, each individual person gets what's called a standard deduction. So by hiring and paying your child, you get a certain portion of their pay that is not taxed by the federal government. So that's where the tax advantage comes in, is you can shift some of your own personal income out of a higher tax bracket into a tax bracket that's either lower or not taxed at all. So that's where the true money game comes into play to provide some real benefit. There's a lot of rules and structure. It's not complicated, but you do want to follow those rules and have some structure in place. And the structure piece is critical because if it's a corporation, you've got some payroll taxes to pay. There are ways to get around that though. So you can set it up so that it's efficient in having payroll tax exemption on the wages that you're paying kids, which makes the benefit even more beneficial. Mm-hmm. Where if you don't have that, you have a 15% cost for paying the kids and putting them on payroll. So sometimes that will deter people from taking action, but there are ways to set it up properly so you don't even have that 15%.
Yeah. You know, Matt, the more I hear you talk about all this, the more I'm so grateful that a lot of this is handled by you, because it gets pretty technical here. This is really interesting.
The thing I'll say about that is, in terms of finding a good relationship, it's not that you have to work with us. I'm a very big advocate for the industry in planning and just people in general. Find somebody that you can talk to and have good conversations with. That is really the key when it comes to implementing this stuff. I learned a lot of things throughout my career from other people and other firms, and I'm very grateful for that. But one of the things I learned that often is a stop mechanism from people taking action on this stuff is they sit in a room and the person explaining it is just talking up here. And so instead of they don't want to admit that they have no idea what you just said, so they just don't say anything and then they don't take action. So if you're not jiving or getting a good gel with somebody that you're working with, either be honest about it or try to find somebody that you can talk to at that level to make sure you're not missing out on opportunity, because that's where I see people missing the most is just the fear of admitting that they don't know what the other person's talking about, or it just got way too technical and, oh,
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. And make sure you've got that good relationship and good communication going on.
So I'm going to tangent for just a second. That what you just said reminds me of a dinner I was at not too long ago. My buddies Pete Vargas and John Rulin, also a front row dad, had gotten a few people together here in Austin. Tucker Max was there, who's going to be on the show, or have just been on the show. Actually, as we release this, his episode probably would have come out not too long ago. But I'm sitting there next to this brilliant guy, Nathan Latka. And he hosts a big podcast. I had no idea who he was. I just was like, as I was talking to him, I was learning. But one of the things that was really clear, and he loved that, by the way, he loved that I didn't know who he was. One thing that was really clear was that he was really smart and really knowledgeable in this space. And he was talking and talking. And then finally I was like, I think I might have like just jumped in for a second. And I'm like, I've got to be honest, Nathan, I have no idea what you're saying right now. No idea. And he really liked that. He really appreciated that I was totally honest, because I think a lot of people would just keep nodding their head like they know, oh yeah, for sure. And, you know, but I think I gained a little trust with him when I was just being honest. Like, hey man, you're a brilliant soul, but I'm not tracking much of what you're saying in this present moment. And then he was able to adjust the dialogue a little bit to help bring me up to speed on where we were. And it was awesome. It was really cool. So we need that type of honesty, and we have that between you and I, which is great. I can jump in and say, whoa, hold on. Can you share, if I need you to slow down a little bit or break it down in a different way or tell it in a different story, you're always able to help. Let's talk a little bit. I don't think we got to this yet, but let's talk about the family bank concept. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So this, in the intro, we talked a little bit about the stress around money or difficulties around money. And one thing I set up that really can be a process to help you solve some of those issues if you're struggling with this concept is really a process for your money. So again, I have to credit Mike Michalowicz to this a little bit, because
my man Mike,
his wonderful book, Profit First, teaches you that all accounting, and especially the complexities of accounting, doesn't have to be so complex. So this is an iteration of what he's done in Profit First, but really taking it one step further. So in the household, we have some very specific bank accounts set up. We have a household account for all the household bills. And then my wife has an account, I have an account, and then each child has an account. So everybody has clear understanding of what money comes into each account and for what purpose. And in each individual's account, it's their money to do with what they want. So whether it's my wife's account or my account, that was one thing. Everybody's fought about money at one point in their life. And it's like, well, you did this and I did that. And so the rule is basically, look, if it's in your account, I don't care what you do with it. And I have no right to challenge you on it. If you wanted to go do ABC and I wanted to do XYZ, great. That's why it's there. But the household account is there to pay the bills. So each one of those accounts gets a very specific dollar amount each and every month. Then the planned excess goes into the family bank. So the bank is the concept to really capture the excess and start to make different financial decisions with those dollars, because number one, it's a little bit of proof of concept. Hey, we think our budget for the household is this. We have this amount coming in. We should have this amount extra. A lot of times when we're working with clients, we kind of have to prove, okay, is the extra really there? Because we don't want to commit to something if we don't have the cash flow to do it. So the family bank helps us isolate it in a sense so we can see what cash is actually accumulating. Then it's a really wonderful thing and a really empowering thing to see that money growing in that account. And you can set it up as just a bank account, or you can take it one step further like I have. We actually have a formal LLC. It's the Valley Oak Bank, where all this stuff happens. And then we make our financial decisions for our future and our goals inside of that company. And it serves our future. It also can serve our current lifestyle. That's the other thing that's really nice about it. We always want to look at money and compounding money and how do we grow money so that the money keeps getting bigger and bigger. That's everybody's goal. We want wealth to accumulate. We want money to accumulate. Well, we also don't want to miss out on living life. So the story on this, my wife and my daughter just took a trip to Europe this past summer. And that didn't come out of our household account. That came from the family bank. Because what we did, we treat it like a bank. We took the money, paid for the trip, and then out of our household account, we're paying that back over time. Because the whole goal of the family bank is accumulation. We want money always increasing. We want cash flow always increasing, because that's what's going to allow the net worth and the cash as a whole to grow and continue to compound. So we can use the money, whether it's for fun or for need. Like, let's say somebody got sick or somebody needed a treatment. The family bank is always there to support us, but we want to have the mindset that if we borrow from the bank, we put the money back over some period of time so that our opportunity cost isn't lost on the money that we used. So it's been really transformational for us. I always like to do things before I recommend it to clients. So we've done this for now almost 3 years, and it's really been fantastic in terms of money management. It's also in most of the money fights were my fault, not anyone else's, since I would get mad about something and it's like, oh, I can't believe blah, 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 I just spew about something. And now I just don't even think about it, because the segregation of funds is there. As long as the household account keeps getting what it needs, we keep paying the bills, and we've got our money going into the bank. I just tell myself, Matt, what are you mad about? Everything's working.
Yeah.
It gives me some ability to say, hey, the system's working. Let the system do what it's designed to do. And it's really been great for us. So I try to now share that with as many people as I can.